Awesome. Good. I got the same thing Glenda did this morning. I got up and I was getting ready and I thought, well, I better check my phone. And I had missed a call from Pastor about 7:30 this morning. And he asked me to bring a word also. So this morning I'm going to be in Matthew chapter 7. If you guys want to go ahead and turn there. A few weeks ago, I don't know, what's it been, a month or more, I presented a question to the men's group on Friday night. I asked them, and I want you guys to think about this, what is the dumbest thing Satan has ever convinced you? Just one, the absolute dumbest, because I'm going to tell you mine. But I'm going to go through me first. A lot of you don't know me, you don't know my story, and not all of you know all of my story. But I was raised here in Ruidoso. My family moved here in 1947. We've been here a long time, a really long time. When I was very little, we started going, we went to church. It's what we did. And when I was about 5, we quit going. Some church politics. It was so long ago that First Christian Church was where Family Vision Center is now. That's how long ago that was. And we quit going. But everything was good. I had a loving mother. I had a loving father. I'm one of the few that had a father that told me he loved me, he was proud of me, and supported me in everything I did. I know that is not usual. But everything was going swimmingly along. Everything was great. And then the first big tragedy in my life happened. Mother's Day, 1990. It was May 13th. I'll never forget it. I was in the back room memorizing a poem for school, and I was called to the living room because I had to pull my dad out of the chair. He had had a heart attack and died at home that night. At 14 years old, I was tough. How could God take away my dad? He was my everything. How could he do that to me? I was angry and I was upset. But years later, I finally realized part of the reason why. Following freshman year in high school, there were some really, really cute girls that I liked. And where were they going? Church. So I probably wouldn't have noticed them if Dad was still alive, but it got me into church. And I started going to First Baptist Church here in town, and went all through high school there. Everybody told me I was saved, so I assumed I was saved. I got baptized, and I went on to college. Well, I got to college in a revival one night and realized I wasn't saved. And I went down and I got saved at the revival. I was a freshman in college. I met my ex-wife. That actually was our first date, was the night I got saved, which is always interesting. But we went all through college. I got burned out. I dropped out with, 30 hours left. I know, crazy. But we got married, and we moved to Fort Worth. And we started going to a church there, North Richland Hills Baptist. Really great, nice little church. But that's where my second big tragedy happened. I'm going to skip over that because I'm going to go back to it. So eventually, we moved back from Fort Worth up here. I get a job at AutoZone. I'm the store manager there for about 3.5 years. I feel like God's telling me I need to get out of there. I get out of there. I start to teach at the high school. I work with the special ed department for about 5 years, and I take over my mom's business. Well, in that time, my wife at the time had decided that she didn't want to be with me anymore, and she moved to Texas, and we got divorced. So that was tough. That was the third big tragedy in my life. But what came out of that tragedy of my wife leaving and divorcing me? Well, the first day I took over my mom's business, I had to go to the bank like I do every single day. And I had avoided that bank for about 6 months because that's where my ex-wife was. That's where she had worked. That's where she had been let go from, and I did not want to go into that bank. But I did. I walked into that bank. I wish I could say I walked in there confidently, with my head held high. I did not. I walked with my head down, walking slow with my hands in my pocket. I looked up, and I saw Jess at her teller line. And I heard God say very clearly, "That is the woman I have for you." I went, okay. And so I walked up to it, and we started talking. One of the first things Jess tells me is, "I'm married." So I automatically thought, God, is this you? I don't know, what was it, a week, 2 weeks later? I ran into her at Walmart. I was joking around with her, and she said, just to let you know I'm moving. I'm divorcing my husband. I caught him having an affair. And some strange thing came out of my mouth that night. I know it was my voice because I recognized my voice, but I still don't really recognize what I said that night. I said, "Don't go to Dallas. I think we could have something." I still don't know where that came from. It shocked her to no end. But needless to say, we started talking and through some different things, we got together, and then I helped her move to Dallas. But right before she moved, she told me she was mad at me because she was going to go to Dallas single, and that's not happening. But long story short, out of that third grade tragedy, I ended up with a beautiful wife. Beautiful, beautiful woman. But let's go back to Fort Worth, the second tragedy in my life. So let's turn to Matthew chapter 7, and we're going to start in verse 3. "And why do you look at the speck in your brother's eye, but do not consider the plank in your own eye? Or how can you say to your brother, 'Let me remove that speck from your eye,' and look, a plank is in your own eye? Hypocrite! First remove the plank in your eye, and then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye." Has anybody ever really thought about what this looks like? "Oh, look, Sandy, you have a speck in your eye." "Roy, watch out for that speck." "Mitch, you got one too." Ridiculous looking, isn't it? How can you accuse somebody of having a speck when you have a plank in your own eye? So you may ask yourself, well, how do you grow from a speck to a plank? I can tell you right now, my plank was a whole lot bigger than this. So like I said, we moved to Fort Worth and we started going to I'd say a little church. It was a mega church. We ran anywhere between 1,600 and 2,000 on a Sunday morning. And we were about 300,000 square feet. Big, big church. So we started going to the young married Sunday school class because me and my ex-wife, we had just been married. And I found myself wanting things like we do when we're that age. Oh, wow, God, it'd be cool if I got a big screen TV. Did I need a big screen TV? No. But inevitably, somebody at church that Sunday morning would be like, "Hey, we just got a big screen TV." And at first I was like, "Oh, okay, well, I'm happy for you. You deserve it. You deserve it." But then it's thing after thing after thing. And that voice in your ear starts to talk to you. "Well, why didn't you get that? You deserve it more than they do." And that speck, it'll start to grow little bit by little bit by little bit. And before long, you have a plank. Now, you may wonder why I thought I deserved the things that I deserved. It's go back to Glenda's second question. Why are you here? I was at church to get my check mark on my checklist. And I deserved whatever I wanted because I was there Sunday morning, I was there Sunday night, I was in the choir, I made choir practice, I went to the classes on Wednesday night. Wait a minute, I worked there. I was there every day of the week. I deserved it. Why? Because I made my little checklist. Is that what God wants from us? No, He doesn't want us to be, I call it a checklist Christian. I got my checklist, I'm good to go. That's not a relationship. That's checking things off to make sure you do it. So my plank, it starts to grow and grow and grow. So you have this plank up here. If you're walking around, swinging this plank around, is anybody even going to want to come up to you and talk to you? They're going to get smacked. God, give me a blessing. So He sends a blessing and you go, where is it? What do? You knock it right out of the way. You can't do a whole lot with this in your eye. Mine had gotten very big. And one of the big things is not only, you've heard Pastor talk about it, having a self-pity chair. The devil gave me a self-pity suit. And I wore that suit everywhere. And that suit had what I thought was one of the coolest accessories of all time. It had a helmet. Now, what guy in here doesn't like having a helmet? I mean, we just like helmets. But what was that helmet for? That helmet was when I prayed to say, God, if you don't want this for me, give me a roadblock. So God would set up a roadblock, but I had that helmet. I'd lower my head, and I'd run right through that roadblock. Not only does it get you where you're not supposed to be, your head hurts after a while, running through things. But my jealousy and my envy had gotten so big I wasn't listening to anything God was telling me, and I was going to do what I was going to do. And that ended with me buying a place to live out there. I knew I couldn't afford it. I knew there was no way it was going to work out. God had put up, I don't know how many roadblocks in a row that I had ducked my head and ran through, but I did it anyway. And because of that, my third greatest tragedy is I had to move my family into a homeless shelter. I lost my house. I lost everything. And I thought I had pretty much hit rock bottom. And so after about 10 years of praying to God that I'd be able to move back home, God said, it's time. And, just being me, of course I said, nuh-uh. I have a new place to live now. It's a great place to live. CJ's in a great school. We're getting really involved here and here and here and here. And God kept telling me, no, go home. And I kept saying, no, look at all I have here. So God eventually took away the job I had, which then I couldn't afford the place I had. When then we would have to move again and CJ wouldn't be in the school he had. Every single thing that got taken away. And I finally had to say, oh, I need to move back home. So that was the second greatest tragedy in my life. Luckily, once I moved here, I wandered into a little church called Foot of the Cross. You guys have probably heard me talk about it. I still had on my self-pity suit with my helmet because I was angry. I was mad. And the pastor there, Pastor Phil, and his wife Laurel, they invited me and my ex-wife over for dinner one night. And we're there, and he's like, Your kids want the Xbox, they can have it. I went, what? Do you want this? Do you want that? You can just take it out of my house. And I said, why, Phil? He goes, because it's junk. It's stuff. He goes, whatever's mine is yours anyway. Take whatever you want. And I think it's about that time that I ripped off that suit. And it wasn't until probably last year on the mountain that I really finally got rid of it all, but that got me back on my path. But I want to go back to this plank here. So you have this plank in your eye. What does this plank represent? It represents the sin in your life. How can you judge anybody on anything when you have so much sin in your life? That's what this is. This is sin. So we need to remove that sin in our lives before we can do anything. Now, how are we going to remove that sin? Repent. How are we going to keep it from coming back? Pray. Get in the Word. So you guys now know my story. Now I asked you a question. What is the dumbest thing that Satan has ever convinced you that you believed in your life? I'll tell you, mine was about walking in the doors here at this church. They really were. Was it I was divorced? That didn't, I was like, no, they're not going to bug that. Was it that Jess and I were living together before we got married? No, they weren't going to be upset about that. Was it that I had been fired from my job in Fort Worth? No, they were going to accept that. Was it that I had lost my home and I'd lived in a homeless shelter? Was that going to be the one thing that I would not accept me for at this church? No. Some of you know what it is. Can anybody guess what the biggest thing was that I was scared about coming into this church? You know, Ben, no. I felt like this church was not going to accept me because I wear shorts. No joke. That was the biggest thing that kept me from going to the church. How many Sundays did you say, come on, let's go to church? And I'd say, nope, they're not going to like I'm in shorts. Pretty dumb stuff, isn't it? Dumb things that we believe. No, I had a whole slew of stuff all through my life that he could have used. But no, he picks shorts. I guess the bigger question should be, who's seen me in long pants? You know, I do have a new person helping me out at the office, and the first thing they said is, oh, we don't have a dress code. I see you're in shorts. Yes, I even wear my shorts to work. But you guys embraced me from the minute I walked in the door, and you loved on me, and that's one of the big reasons I'm still here. Not only do I get renewed, refreshed, and get truth, I get loved on. And to back what Glenda was saying, we get a lot of loving at our fellowships. Thursday nights, lunch after church, bowling. That's when we do a lot of loving on each other. And I do want to echo what she says, and I want to encourage you to stay. But I also want, if you feel like Satan is telling you something dumb that you're doing, or you have that plank in your eye or even a speck, the front's open. Come, leave it at the cross. Because originally I had a big long plank that I was going to break in two and turn into a cross. Because that's where we have to leave that plank. It turns into the cross, and that's where Jesus was. And our sin was taken care of at that point. It was done. It was over. Well, in fact, we were talking in our Bible study, you know, Satan entered Judas himself. He didn't want anything to stop that from happening, from him being crucified on that cross. But in doing that, he defeated himself. He defeated himself. And I bet they were having a big party, and then Jesus said, "It is finished." And they went, "Wait, what? Excuse me?" It's done. It's over. All you have to do is ask. As a matter of fact, in John, where am I going here? Where's my little Bible thing? Oh, it's right there. In John 14, verse 12, "Most assuredly I say to you, he who believes in me, the works that I do, he will do also. And greater works than these he will do, because I go to my Father. And whatever you ask in my name, that I will do, that the Father may be glorified in the Son. If you ask anything in my name, I will do it." That's huge. Right there, verse 14. If you ask anything in my name. So I do. I encourage you this morning. The front's open. Hannah, could you come and play some music for us? You're doing such a beautiful job with the worship. Thank you so very much. It was wonderful. And Levi, you rock.